Hey, greetings. Uhuru. Can you hear me, Frank?
Yep.
I should have tested this, man. Peace to the family. Uhuru, welcome to another episode of We Charge Colonialism, Pan-Afrikan Book Club. We are back, and happy to be back. I'm Kimba, co-host, one of the writers at We Charge Colonialism. Frank, you want to let the people know who you are?
Peace, everyone.
First time with us.
Yeah. Peace, everyone. This is Frank, the host for the Revolutionary Repatriation Educational Lecture Series every Sunday at 1 p.m. And by the way, I know you guys are enjoy April 30, right? And we should continue with that movement. I mean, it is time, man. Oh, man, I love it. I love that April 30, man. I love how things happen.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, you didn't. I mean, around the way, you didn't see what happened on April 30?
I saw it, and you know what? We're gonna get into it because my stories are connected to Burkina Faso, so we're gonna get into that in a second. For all of those who are joining us, make sure you like and share. Y'all know how we get down. We're about to do some serious building. This is our Pan-Afrikan Book Club, where we look at news around the world as it pertains to the African experience and struggle for liberation wherever we are, whether you are on the continent, whether you are in Europe, United States, or anywhere in the Americas. We are highlighting African resistance to colonialism and just, all of the problems with that come with being a colonized people as well, because we have to expose those contradictions, and in exposing those contradictions, we have to come with an African lens. We have to put on our African cap and look at these problems that we're facing and understand that the root of it all is colonialism, because sometimes we get caught up in looking at our problems through the lens of the one who is creating the problems in the first place. And we can never come up with a solution because the people who are causing the problems are benefiting from the problems. And they have a vested interest in keeping African people in the position that we are in right now. So with that being said, Burkina Faso, my man Ibrahim, he's fighting back against this. And he's, right now he's a symbol of African resistance, like live and direct. We don't have to look to the past, right? We can look to someone right now that's doing some serious state building. So if this is your first time with us, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Before we get into our weekly roundup, which we usually do, and then we transition to our book reading, which is Fanon today. We're continuing with Fanon towards an African revolution. And actually, what we're going to read today is very much connected to what's happening now on the continent and around the world. Very much relevant. So I'm looking forward to getting into that reading. So, Frank, I just wanted to share this. This was something I came across through social media. It has to do with the Thomas Sankara Center. And so I'm going to pull it up on my screen. All right. So the subtitle, it's in French, but the subtitles are on.
Nous restons à Niamey qui dispose désormais de son centre Thomas Sankara, un centre de formation politique et idéologique de la jeunesse inauguré en cours de semaine. Laoudi Moutari, Maïna Sara et Amadou Bouraïma.
Placée sous la présidence du ministre en charge de l'enseignement supérieur, cette cérémonie consacre l'inauguration du centre Thomas Sankara section du Niger, fruit de la collaboration du dit centre avec le comité directeur de l'Union des scolaires nigériens, dont un compartiment du siège social va désormais servir de cadre aux activités du centre Thomas Sankara section du Niger. Toutes choses dont se réjouissent les deux parties représentées par le secrétaire général du comité directeur de l'USN et Fred Mouroul Al-Hassan et la présidente du centre Inimezit Richardson qui partagent et défendent la même idéologie.
Thomas Sankara, figure emblématique de la révolution burkinabé, ne représente pas seulement une époque révolue. Il incarne aujourd'hui pour nous jeunes un idéal vivant, celui d'une jeunesse africaine consciente, intègre, audacieuse et debout. Et le centre Thomas Sankara devient désormais l'un de nos quartiers généraux dans cette grande œuvre de libération.
Le centre Thomas Sankara est véritablement un lieu d'étude de la science de la révolution. Nous sommes une bibliothèque socialiste et panafricaine et surtout un centre de formation politique et idéologique.
Pour le ministre de l'Enseignement supérieur, de la Recherche et de l'Innovation technologique, l'acte est salutaire et permet de former la jeunesse nigérienne.
Vous l'honorez encore en faisant de ce centre Thomas Sankara, qui doit être un point de départ pour tout ce qui est ressources en matière d'idéologie, mais pas seulement. C'est la formation idéologique, mais la formation tout court.
La coupure du ruban suivie de la visite guidée du centre Thomas Sankara et la signature de la convention entre le CDUSN et le centre ont marqué la fin de cette cérémonie inaugurale à laquelle ont pris part plusieurs militants et responsables syndicaux de l'USN et des acteurs de la société civile nigérienne épousant l'idéologie sankariste et au-delà le panafricanisme.
Yeah. Hey, let me go back. Right.
Surtout un centre de formation.
See them earrings? You see them earrings that sister got on? It's Thomas Sankara, wasn't it? It's Africa with Thomas Sankara. That's what I'm talking about, man. I've been crying tears of joy all week seeing what's happening. Frank, I know you got a lot to say. You waiting, so I'm gonna just let you go in. But I just wanted to show that, which is inspiring me too. I reached out to them. I'm thinking about starting a Thomas Sankara Center here and trying to make that connection with Niger and Burkina Faso with the Thomas Sankara Center, just showing that unity. But go ahead, Frank. What you been seeing all week, man?
Man, you know, for the very first time, Black people, melanated people all around the world, for the very first time, for them to send a message to the enemies. Because look, we have to say the way it is, you know. To the Christians, the Bible identify your enemies. Even if the Bible did not say it, right? Let us be realistic here. For the very first time, you know, everyone know who their enemy are. But for the very first time, for melanated people to identify their enemies. And this was the prophecy of the ancestor of the enemies, that Negro unity was a threat to their existence. This message, it go to, let me be specific here, to the United States, because they brought themselves to the spotlight. Let me say this to the US, because it is not in Haiti, right? So there's a message to them. The messages have been spoken, and you have seen it. If anything happened to Abraham Touare, Washington, D.C., we are not saying don't fight for France. Fight for France. Fight for your interests. But if anything happened to Abraham Touare, you have seen it all. Your embassy all around the world will be dismantled. And that will be the end of your existence, especially in any Black nation. And what's going to happen? Not only Black nation, but other places that people already feel that you are their enemies. Because yes, you have identified that you are actually African people enemies. And what is about to happen is that you have made African people to realize that you are their enemies. You are the problem to their progress. And once they realize that, and they have realized that, for you to convince them that you actually want to work with them, that you have actually recognized that you are the enemy, it will never work, because they will never trust you, because the issue here is trust. And this is where the United States, you're going to find it very difficult. And let me say this to the US. Don't even think about any other way, maybe trying to do it with war, for you to go directly to go and fight the African continent. Don't even think about it. Because it is a war that you will never win, and that will be the end of the imperialist. It is a war that you will never win. So in every other way, you will never, ever win that war if you dare try it. To say, you going directly to go and fight Africans, the African continent, you, the United States, you will never win. Because what you saw, don't think even black people in your army will dare go fight against their own people, against a continent now that they have come to know that, but wait, why should we be fighting for a nation that does not fight for our interest? And then fight against a continent that which is our continent. So don't even try it. Don't try it to say black people in your army will come and fight for you. It will not happen. That will be your demise. Because you will be fighting the entire war. And I can tell you right now, because you brought this to yourself. You brought this to yourself. African people are all over, almost in every army. So don't just depend on your one general that you call General Michael Lansley. Because I can tell you the place General Michael Lansley is right now, he's even regretting why he had to make that statement. Because even in the US now, he does not have that support. His military might have gone. Do you see how Obama is not respected? You saw the 2023 election that went on, right? You saw Obama. He went to campaign. He was never respected because he went against a black continent, a black nation, the black people. So he was never respected. Everywhere he went, he was booed out. So you, General Michael Lansley, you are just put yourself in that situation. So if you are part of a terrorist organization called AFRICOM, because AFRICOM is a terrorist organization, because the reason why I'm saying a terrorist organization, they have never gone anywhere. In fact, their presence on the African continent increased. Terrorist activities, every nation that they base, that they created there, terrorists have increased in our area because they have to recruit people to train them to go and create the chaos. And I watched one of the so-called General Michael Lansley interview, when they interviewed him about the establishment of Africa on the African continent. And he directly said, we are not on the African continent to fight for the African people. We are not on the African continent to go directly to fight for African people. The African people will fight for themselves. We are only there to direct them and give them support. But we have come to realize that even with your directions, even with your support, we are going nowhere, because we have realized that it is the enemies that are getting the support, that are getting the modern weapon. All right. We have come to realize that with your directions have always been to destroy the black Messiah. So in that instances or analysis, AFRICOM is a terrorist organization on the African continent to destabilize the African continent. And General Michael Lansley, you have made the worst mistake to ever come out to talk about killing another Messiah, just how you guys have systematically killed all the African Messiah. And the US, for African people to really come out, the youth to come out to recognize that You have always been against their interests. You have always killed the great leader and safeguard the corrupt leader and work with corrupt leader. That alone, the US, you have put yourself in a bad predicament that the African continent, the African youth are no longer in support of the United States. And we should call it a spade a spade. The United States does not have any value or any respect in any black nation again. And this message, they had called April 30, was a message to the US that you have failed because you are no longer going to gain that trust again with African people. And you know, in this current time, with you not being in collaboration with Africans in the African continent, black people all around the world, you know absolutely you will not survive. Everyone survive with the attachment, with some kind of a relationship to the black man, to the African continent, to the black nation. In the US, you have put yourself in a predicament all around the world. African people have come out to let you know that you are in the wrong place. You are not in the right place, my brother, my sister. You are not in the right place. And we are sorry to say that, but it is what it is. You are not going to kill another African leader. We have known you now to be the killer of African great leader. We know you now to be the destroyer of great African leader. We know you now. You do not want the betterment for Africa. We know you now. You are upholding the last statement that was made in the Berlin Conference in 1884 that Africa and her descendants will never ever rise. We know you now in the US. You are holding up to that which your forefather put in our memo, in our closing statement. And now we have come to let the United States aware or know that we Africans are aware of what you are holding and what you are trying to protect. And what you're trying to protect, it will never happen. Go and ask your forefather J.A. Hoover and tell them your prophecy, Negro unity, is a threat to white supremacy. Because it is a war, spiritually, physically, you will never ever win. And at this time, we are now calling on your white Jesus. At this time, we are now calling on your white Mary. At this time, we are now calling on your white angels. At this time, we are calling on the true black Jesus, the true black Mary, the true black angels, our forefather. We are calling now their name. And I can tell you, if you don't understand what time it is a time that we are not even asking you to repent. We are not even asking you to come and tell us we apologize. We beg you. We waited for so long for you to do that. We waited for so long for you to do that. And you did not do it. Now when we are taking things into our hand, that's the time you come to tell us, oh, we are sorry. We recognize what we did against you. We gave you over 400 years to recognize your mistake. But you said you did nothing that. You said what you did, it wasn't wrong. What your forefather did wasn't wrong. What they left for you, you will maintain, you will continue to maintain that legacy. Oh, so you wish to see African people suffer. You wish to see African people die. You wish to call a stinking continent, stinking community, stinking people, or you wish to look down on us, not realizing what we have, it is what that is sustaining you. I'm glad that you sat in your White House. I'm glad that you sat in your conference or in your meeting and said and talk and discuss about the riches, the gold, the diamond, the mineral, the uranium. I mean, everything you discussed about how the African continent have ate. I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that. And now we are ready to have it on our own way. We were listening. The United States is a hypocrite nation. How dare you to say Abraham Traore is using a gold for his own military purpose? That's the same thing you did to Gaddafi. But I will let you know, it is the very first time in Burkina Faso, Abraham Traore, unlike the government you are supporting, unlike your so-called democratic leader that was dead, Very first time in Burkina Faso to have free tuition from kindergarten to colleges. Very first time in Burkina Faso that students, university students, receive about 100 CFK every month without working for it. And they are free university. They go there free. And every month they take pay without even working. Every month. Do you do that in your country here? Did you do that when you have a democratic, so-called democratic leader in Burkina Faso? Was it there? It was never there. Currently, the very first time Burkina Faso is manufacturing car. Burkina Faso, they are producing their own gold. I mean, workers, ministers, their salaries are reduced. This is a man that does not take presidential pay. He only take his military pay. Abraham Touare. He don't take presidential pay. He only take military pay, just like all military within the military or medical security.
But it's none of their business anyway.
And you say this man is using your gold. Did you ask France when France was looting the people go and today France have reserve of it? Oh, United States, how hypocrites you are. Did you custom France? Did you know that the Burkina Faso, they were suffering? Did you know that all United States, you are so hypocrites? And these are the things you've been doing. That is why Martin Leslie sat and opened a wild mouth to say, they do not control the narrative. It is a narrative that the United States no longer control. Because you control that narrative, you kill Thomas Sankara. You control that narrative, you kill Patrick Lumumba. You control that narrative, you kill Gaddafi. You control that narrative, you kill Amilcar Cabral. You control that narrative, you put sanctions on Zimbabwe. You control that narrative, and you destroy, you destabilize the African continent. But guess what? The narrative are in our hand now. We are writing our own story. And at this time, woe unto you, America.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, appreciate that, Frank. The analysis, appreciate, the critique, and just exposing just the hypocrisy of the West. And when you look at America and its history, because I know you talked about what America response was to France or some of these other countries, but America itself, when you look at Fort Knox, you can go to Fort Knox here in Kentucky, where they have gold reserves at, and the majority of that gold is stolen gold. It's gold that came from Europe by way of, well, it came from Africa, or it came from Europe by way of Africa after Africa was looted by Europe. And so America doesn't have to look no further than itself when it talks about how gold is being housed and used for what? The benefit of the ruling class here. And also just to be able to control the monetary system. Because America, well, I don't want to even get too much into that history because we're going to go off track, but we'll circle back around to America and its gold reserve, since they want to point the finger at everybody else and what they're doing with their gold. Really quick before we transition to the book, just wanted to bring this story. We won't go deep into the story, but just an update so folks know what's happening. What else is happening on the continent? You see Burkina Faso, again, bringing them up, but Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger are going into, are negotiating or sitting down with Morocco at the table to talk about gaining access to the sea because of these countries being landlocked. And so landlocked countries have a difficult time with import and export if they are surrounded by countries that may be hostile, countries that's just not that are not friendly, and so they may not have access to certain trade routes. And so if they're able to go into this negotiation with Morocco, the sea opens them up to import export with a lot more countries without having to worry about the hostilities or even high tariffs, because when maybe there's a country you're dealing with, a hostile country, and you're doing trade, you have to work with them, they may pull a Donald Trump on you, right? So this is happening, but Morocco and Algeria, there has been some talks that has broken down between them. So, and it has a lot to do with West Sahara. It's West Sahara, right? The African nation that Morocco is claiming as their territory. So there's, some geopolitical drama going on over there. But we'll keep y'all updated with that. I want to transition straight right into the book. But one more thing, I want to encourage everybody to go to our website, wechargecolonialism.org, and check out the latest article that was written. I just want to make sure my man Nehemiah is getting his just due, because he's putting in that work, and this is his third article I think he has published within the last 2 months, or maybe even less than that. So check out the latest article, The Dimensions of Americanism, Family Freedom, and Individualism. And you can see the article published before that. I had put out The So-Called American Dream, The Dangers of the Pursuit of Happiness. And there's sort of a connection. We didn't even correspond or work together to do these articles. So we kind of was on the same page with this, man. But check them out. The short reads. His is 4 minutes. My article's 3 minutes. And so let's get into it, man. Frantz Fanon. I'm actually going to pick up where I left off at, and then go into the next chapter. And I'll put the link to the book in the chat for those who want access to it. There you go. And if you're viewing on Facebook, I mean, if you're comfortable with that, stay there. But I do want to encourage folks to come to YouTube. So come on YouTube, and I appreciate everybody too that's here with us now. Make sure you like and share if you haven't done that already. And if this is your first time with us, subscribe, and then talk to your friends, family about subscribing as well, so we can get more people, because I think that helps with the algorithm. At least that's what I hear. So let's get into it. This is where we left off. This is in the chapter Racism and Culture. So I'm going to kind of go through this, Frank, and try to get through this chapter. There's a few, like 3 pages, so that we can start the next page. But I may pause like one time if you have a reaction. Just let me know. So race, prejudice, in fact, obeys a flawless logic. A country that lives, draws its substance from the exploitation of other peoples, makes those peoples inferior. Race prejudice applied to those peoples is normal. Racism is therefore not a constant of the human spirit. It is, as we have seen, a disposition fitting into a well-defined system. And anti-Jewish prejudice is no different from anti-Negro prejudice. A society has race prejudice or it has not. There are no degrees of prejudice. One cannot say that a given country is racist, but that lynchings or extermination camps are not to be found there. The truth is that all that and still other things exist on the horizon. These virtualities, these latencies circulate, carried by the light stream of psychoaffective economic relations. Discovering the futility of his alienation, his progressive deprivation, the inferiorized individual after this phase of deculturation, of extraneousness, comes back to his original positions. The culture abandoned, sloughed off, rejected, despised, becomes for the inferiorized an object of passionate attachment. There is a very marked kind of overvaluation that is psychologically closely linked to the craving for forgiveness. But behind this simplifying analysis, there is indeed the intuition experienced by the inferiorized of having discovered a spontaneous truth. This is a psychological datum that is part of the texture of history and of truth. Because the inferiorized rediscovers a style that had once been devalorized, what he does is, in effect, to cultivate culture. Such a caricature of cultural existence would indicate, if it were necessary, that culture must be lived and cannot be fragmented. It cannot be had piecemeal. Yet the oppressed goes into ecstasies over each rediscovery. The wonder is permanent. Having formerly immigrated from his culture, the native today explores it with ardor. It is a continuum honeymoon. Formerly inferiorized, he is now in a state of grace. Not with impunity, however, does one undergo domination. The culture of the enslaved people is sclerosed, dying. No life any longer circulates in it. Or more precisely, the only existent life is dissimulated. The population that normally assumes here and there a few fragments of life which continues to attach dynamic meaning to institutions is an anonymous population. In a colonial system, there are the traditionalists. The former immigrant, by the sudden ambiguity of his behavior, causes consternation. To the anonymity of the traditionalists, he opposes a vehement and aggressive exhibitionism. The state of grace and aggressiveness are the two constants found at this stage. Aggressiveness being the passion-charged mechanism making it possible to escape the sting of paradox. Because the former immigrant is in possession of precise techniques, because his level of action is in the framework of relations that are already complex, these rediscoveries assume an irrational aspect. There is an hiatus, a discrepancy between intellectual development, technical appropriation, highly differentiated modes of thinking and of logic on the one hand, and a simple, pure emotional basis on the other. And really quick, at this time period that Frantz Fanon is writing this, he's talking about what he's experiencing, what he's seeing, and right now you see he's emphasizing. It's almost as if he doesn't say cultural revolution, but I think he's seeing. I'm not going to say he's going to go that far to say it in what I just read, but it's a sort of cultural revolution that's taking place as Africans or Black people are beginning to look back at their past and sort of adopt a culture that they at one point was running away from. They were attempting to assimilate and integrate into colonialism. So Frantz Fanon is seeing a shift happening, and that's what he's talking about. So rediscovering tradition, living it as a defense mechanism, as a symbol of purity, of salvation, the decultured individual leaves impression that the mediation takes vengeance by substantializing itself. This falling back on archaic positions, having no relation to technical development, is paradoxical. The institutions thus valorized no longer correspond to the elaborate methods of action already mastered. The culture puts into capsules, which has vegetated since the foreign domination, is revalorized. It is not reconceived, grasped anew, dynamized from within. It is shouted, and this headlong, unstructured verbal revalorization conceals paradoxical attitudes. It is at this point that the incorrigible character of the inferiorized is brought out for mention. Arab doctors sleep on the ground, spit all over the place, etc. Negro intellectuals consult a sorcerer before making a decision, etc. Collaborating intellectuals try to justify their new attitude. The customs, traditions, beliefs formerly denied and passed over in silence are violently valorized and affirmed. Tradition is no longer scoffed at by the group. The group no longer runs away from itself. The sense of the past is rediscovered. The worship of ancestors resumed. The past, becoming henceforth a constellation of values, becomes identified with the truth. This rediscovery, this absolute valorization, almost in defiance of reality, objectively indefensible, assumes an incomparable and subjective importance. On emerging from these passionate espousals, the native will have decided, with full knowledge of what is involved, to fight all forms of exploitation and of alienation of man. At this same time, the occupant on the other hand, multiplies appeals to assimilation, then to integration, to community. Did you have a reaction?
Yes.
Okay.
So basically, look, the black man is a very great man. I'm not lying to you, because almost every book that our forefather wrote, going to Nkrumah, Dr. Fanon, I mean, every great book, right, written by those people, it spoke about the past, right? And then it have the presence in it, because they knew that, look, when they said a luta continuum, they knew exactly what it meant. So they wrote the book so that when we read it, we will still understand, even if it is not being taught in school, we will understand, right, by our current condition. Now, listen to what Fanon said in that area that I cut. A country that is being exploited by another country make that country to look inferior. You see, this is what exactly the Western world have done, because they have exploited the African continent. They have exploited black nations around the world. So they see us as inferiors. And that is why we keep saying some of these things, and some of our African leaders are so adamant and hard to hear. We have somebody like William Ruto, one of our past president, Nana Akufo-Addo. These guys are so adamant. We have Wala Atara of Articles. What are these guys so adamant to the extent that they can't listen to us? No matter what you do. Look, America or the West, look, the reality here is Dr. Fanon is trying to tell us all the nations that colonized the African continent, all the nations that enslaved African people, all the nations that partook and currently still doing, right, with the demise of getting out African leaders, they are our enemies and they will never be our friends. Now, he says something that regulates, right? And this resonates with the current identification of African. He's talked about a sense of the past to rediscovery. And he also talked about going back to our ancestral roots. I watched a video on April 30 from Ghana. There was a lady that spoke. And the lady said, this is a warning to Michael Leslie, and this is a warning to America and to France. They shouldn't think this thing is physical. Yeah. It's also spiritual, because before we came out, we called the name of our forefather. We went to their graves. We poured libation. We went to the mountains. We went to the hills, right? And we invoked their spirit, and their spirit up here. And she was like, even as I'm speaking, I'm getting boost on my skin. That is to tell us that, look, what Fanon said, look, there is nothing called white Jesus where we have to go to a church and sit down and pray, because white Jesus is for white people. White Mary is for white people. White angel is for white people. It's for the colonizer, the imperialists. It's not for us. It's not for us. This is what Fanon said. We have to go back to our root, because one who exploits you, see you as inferior. That is why they continue to say the black man cannot rule. The black man cannot lead. How can these same people come and tell you, if the black men have a permanent seat, if the black men have a veto power on the United Nations, then that means the United Nations will be dysfunctional. And then you go back to these same people and ask them for direction to come and direct you. They don't want to listen to you on a table where you will sit down and voice out, right? You're right. And they say, by you coming to sit with them, it will make the organization dysfunctional. That is to tell you that there is no place for us with these people. And that is what Fanon said. These people see us as inferior because they continue to exploit us. The reason why they see us as inferior is because they think that we have not come to our senses. They themselves, they know that How can we enslave Black people? How can we colonize their continent for hundreds of years? I mean, for about 70 years or 78 years. And we enslave them for hundreds of years. And then, not only that, right? We gave their babies to alligator, live baby. I mean, all these kind of horrible, horrible things.
Yeah.
We barbecue them. We put stick in their anus and then barbecue them, right? We red them. I mean, all kind of horrible, horrible thing. We cut their arms, their hands, right? We did all of these things.
That's why they don't want us to know our history.
Yes.
They don't want us to read. That's why they constantly are trying to censor our history.
Yes. So in their mind, right? They did all of these things. And systematically, they have never allowed a Black Messiah to rise. They have always been there to destroy any great African leaders. So in their mind, how can African leaders say that in this current time? In their mind, how can African leaders say that in this current time? And they kill Gaddafi, and African leaders come to the United Nations and don't talk about carrying America or NATO to the Hague or to the court, or they don't bring the complaint of NATO or the US to the United Nations. And they even talk about their own brothers and sisters on the African continent, like Nana Akufo-Addo did, came and let Abraham Traoré complain to the same people who killed Gaddafi of the same thing Abraham Traoré is trying to do. This is where these white folks, these imperialists, sit and says, these people are inferior. If we can do all of these things to them, and then they have not yet come to their senses, they are inferiors. And you know, since these things happen with Malcolm Leslie, since these things happen with the United States intention to go and unalive Abraham Traoré, we all know now the 20 assassination attempt have been done by the US, by NATO, by the imperialists, by the West. Because they have tried and they can't. That is why they came to manipulate the African minds to go against Abraham Traoré so that we ourselves can go against Abraham Traoré. But you see, ECOWAS have been silent. They have said nothing about this, what been going on. AU have been silent. They have said nothing, even though we know now. And this is the reason why the AES nation left ECOWAS. Because what is there to be part of ECOWAS? What is there? And even AU, they have said nothing. How will you say that? A nation come from another place to threaten one of your own, to threaten one of your leaders. How will you say that? And you continuously to see these people coming to your continent, killing your leader, killing your African leader. Even if an African leader is not doing better, who gave the United States the audacity to go and judge that African leader that you are not doing better? Isn't Africa is a continent bigger than the United States, bigger than Europe, bigger than France? Why would you say that as a continent? This smaller nation, tiny nation, come and dictate to you 55 head of state. One nation, one president, come and tell you 55 African nations that this leader is not the right leader. And you said that, and you said nothing about it. And then you want us to trust you. You want us to take you people as our leader. You want us to take you people as an entity for the African masses, or that will seek African interest. Really? But this generation, we have lost the respect of ECOWAS. We have lost the respect of AU and ECOWAS. They are no longer an organization. They are dissolved. They are organization for the West, for United States and Europe, and they fight for those people. And this is what Fanon is telling us. We ourselves have to fight our battle.
And he really, in the next chapter, he actually is going to touch on what you're talking about. And like I just shared, I'll share it again, the invite for anyone, because I feel like Fanon, man, he has some bars. He says some things that I know like people have a reaction to. And I definitely want to give, I'll open it up to anybody. We don't have a lot of time, but, if anybody wanted to react, I put the link in the chat. And to that point, I had showed that earlier with Nduku. My thought on that as well is like initially there was to this comment right here. I think the European knew what's up because first of all, there was nothing to base or there was no prior knowledge of African, history or culture. You didn't even speak the language. So to be able to tell it, to be able to come to the conclusion that a people are inferior and you have no evidence and you have no knowledge of those people, that right there shows that you're looking for a rationale to do the atrocities, rationale for the atrocities you're about to commit. Now, what I think happens over time through indoctrination, through miseducation of their own people, I ain't even talking about Africans, through their own people, the people become even more ignorant because they believe in the lies that has been told to them by the European colonizers, the ruling class. So they educate their people that these Africans are inferior, they're this and so forth. So the generations later, yes, I think that those Europeans, they really do believe it. And the reason I think I will argue that they really believe it is because Africans were believing it. They were believing the lies. And this is what Fanon goes into when he's talking right now in this chapter, when he's talking about this rediscovery, right? And Africans going back to those traditions. And now there's going to be this tension between, and he also brings this out, at least my understanding of it is that Africans are beginning to, and around the world, you can say the same thing is happening, but he's looking at Africans on the continent, going back to their traditional ways and culture, even in the face of this system, this reality that they are part of, where it doesn't even make sense in this reality that they're part of. But despite that, despite these technological changes and quote unquote advancements, like they're still going back to a culture. And so what's going to happen? Well, let me finish this. I hope I had time to get to the next one. I'm just going to go through this really quick. The natives in the hand struggle with his culture is too solemn to erupt an operation to tolerate the slightest slip up. No neologism can make the new certainty. The plunge into the chasm of the past is the condition and the source of freedom. The logical end of this will to struggle is the total liberation of the national territory. In order to achieve this liberation, the inferiorized man brings all his resources into play, all his acquisitions, the old and the new, his own and those of the occupant. He's talking about the colonizer when he says occupant. The struggle is at once total absolute, but then race prejudice is hardly found to appear. At the time of imposing his domination, in order to justify slavery, the oppressor had invoked scientific argument. There is nothing of the kind here. A people that undertakes a struggle for liberation rarely legitimizes race prejudice, even in the course of acute periods of insurrectional armed struggle. One never witnesses the recourse to biological justifications. The struggle of the inferiorized is situated on a markedly more human level. The perspectives are radically new. The opposition is the henceforth classical one of the struggles of conquest and of liberation. In the course of struggle in dominating nations, the dominating nations tries to revive racist arguments, but the elaboration of racism proves more and more ineffective. There's talk of fanaticism, of primitive attitudes in the face of death, but once again, the now crumbling mechanism no longer responds. Those who were once unbudgeable, the constitutional cowards, the timid, The internally inferiorized stiffen and emerge bristling. The occupant is bewildered. The end of race prejudice begins with a sudden incomprehension. The occupant spasm in rigid culture, now liberated, opens at last to the culture of people who have really become brothers. The two cultures can affront each other, enrich each other. In conclusion, universality resides in the decision to recognize and accept the reciprocal relativism of different cultures, once the colonial status is irreversibly excluded. And I would say the acceptance of, I would have to revise this thought if I was writing this in regards to the acceptance of culture. I think there has to be an acceptance on all parties to be able to move forward, right, of each other. But there's something about European culture that needs to be modified, and that might be a nice way of putting it right there. But I get the argument though. What he's saying, there's some validity to it, but I would just revise it a bit though. But go ahead, Frank.
Yeah. European culture, the thing about it is it's not inclusive. That's the bottom line. It's not inclusive. They don't even have culture because their culture are based on taking on other people's culture, right? I mean, look at this. You know who brought up plagiarism? They brought up plagiarism. They went to Africa, stole the culture, stole the history, stole our artifact. I mean, everything. And then they know that in the future, we will learn about these things. So they came out with plagiarism. Hey, you can't plagiarize. You should quote from, what you see and think. And that is why after they went to Africa, they learned all of these things. They went down, they say, according to Greek, according to Roman, according to Asian this, according to Asian that. And then you have to quote from them and to say the knowledge, right? The ideology or the invention came from them because you have to say according to Roman Catholic, according to Greek, according to this. Meanwhile, that they are so-called Alexander the Great, they are so-called Socrates, all of them got their education from Africa, from the African continent. But now when they were writing a book, they did not say according to Asian Africa, according to Africa, according to October Lane. They did not say none of those things. You see, so they brought about plagiarism and they are thief. Because if you can go and steal and then get knowledge from group of people, and you don't give the credit to those people, and then you write your book and then take the credit, and then telling the same people, if your children come and learn this book, they should give all the credit, you are absolutely a thief. And this is what they are. They are thieves. And systematically, not only in education, but I mean, culture, they are thief. Education, they are thief. Resources, they are thief. I mean, everywhere that they have, gone like people have. I mean, not even on the African continent, but everywhere these imperialists have gone, right? They were introduced. They were welcome. But at the end of the day, they go against the people. They are thief. And this is where we have to come to the realization that we can no longer trust these people. These people should not come on your continent or to your nation again, and you just easily open up to them. We Black people, we African people, we are so nature when it comes to nature, to the extent that we open up to everything that come on our way. We open up to everything, and that alone it make us open to anybody to come in to take advantage of us. Unlike other people, you don't see them just open up like that. They don't do it. In fact, you're going to serve them for very so long. They're not going to trust you. They're not going to take you to certain places. They're not going to introduce you to certain things, right? But only African people. And I think we have to come to the realization and learn what history have done to us to stop some of these things.
Now, Uhuru, I unite with that. And I wanted to a couple of things. Well, one thing, right here. Appreciate this. Everyone, check this out. Thanks for this recommendation in the Secret History of the American Empire. John Perkins, who also wrote the Confessions of an Economic Hitman, who expose. I just love when they expose themselves. You know, they grow a conscience and tell on themselves. But yet, as Nduku put, John Perkins confesses that his supervisor admits that Africa is important to the well-being of future generations. And also this guy right here, and I'm doing my investigation right now. So don't take what I say. Take what I say as what's the saying? As a grain of salt, right? This guy right here, I'm still not convinced that this is a real person. I think this is AI. I could be tripping though, so don't. What I'm saying, I'm probably out of my mind, but I'm going to do some research because I don't know, something about the way he is talking, and I've seen some stuff. Some people did some things with my image here at the job, and when I was hearing him speak, I was like, "Yo, this something ain't right about him." So we're going to continue to do our research. So because I don't want to say that he is or not just yet, but I'm going to get back to you on that. So this right here, I'm halfway serious too. That's the crazy part about it. There's something up with this dude, man. I'm telling you. But to Nduku, to your point, he said the same thing about Africa and why it was a question that was asked to him. Why is Africa important and so forth? And he started talking about the interests and the benefits. And I'm paraphrasing right now. But they know. Frank said it earlier about the resources over there. So what I want to do, we don't have a lot of time left, man, but this is the chapter that I really wanted to get into because Fanon, what Fanon is saying right here, I think it's a lesson that we can learn about what's happening now on the continent, and particularly with Burkina Faso. And with Africa, like the connection is everywhere. Colonial, wherever Africans are colonized, it's the same game. So here in Brooklyn, where I'm at right now, because sometimes I'm in Philly, and you know, Frank's down there in Philly. So like what is happening here, the same game that they play over here, they're playing over there. So we can learn a lesson from what Fanon is talking about. So just to get into this chapter, I'm trying to read as much as I can, but in here, just really quick, he's going to point out, I think, 3 or 4 things that the colonizer does to maintain, and France in particular, to maintain their possession of the colony. So for 20 years, the colonial peoples have been upsetting foreign domination and establishing a footing on the international scene, one after another, some slowly, others more rapidly. The old parent states withdraw from their possessions. While the colonial expeditions conform to a given and known pattern, the necessity to establish law and order among barbarians, the protection of the concessions and interests of European countries, the generous contributions of Western civilization, not enough has been said about the stereotype of means used by the parent countries to cling to their colonies. The Franco-Algerian War, because of its size and intensity, enables us to see in close up, by the very reason of her successive failures, the attempts made by France to maintain her domination. The first tactic of the colonial countries consists of basing themselves on official collaborators and feudal elements. These Algerians, who have been particularly singled out by a series of compromises, are regrouped and requested publicly to condemn the seditious movement that disturbs the peace of the community. When he's talking about community, he's talking about the colonizer community that they have control over. Like to be clear, in 1954 and in the course of the first months of 1955, France proceeded to make a census of its faithful and loyal servants and to mobilize them. We need to put Michael Langley face back up here.
I mean, it gotta be seen, man. Like, it gotta be seen.
And we ain't gotta go that far. The Ivory Coast, right?
And another thing, the African president too, he's a traitor. Yeah, the African president is a traitor. And again, even the Liberian president is a traitor. You know, look, You see?
Hold on, before you get hold that thought. Declarations, condemnations, appeals to wisdom were drafted, published, or read over the radio. Or what that say? I can't see. I'm saying the radio. The colonialist authorities waited confidently, then anxiously, and finally without hope for the results of these messages. Solicited anew, the servants formed a habit unheard of until then of declining the invitations. This is what's probably happening right now. Of declining the invitations, they avoided the official ceremonies and often even adopted a new vocabulary. The fact is that the revolutionary commitment proved to be more and more total, and the collaborators became aware of the gigantic awakening of a people in arms. So you talked about Langley regretting earlier. So in the face of the defection, even of men whom they had used and dishonored in the eyes of the Algerian people, and in the face of the active hostility of the elites, the French authorities launched the second operation. Mm-hmm. Essentially, this amounted to cutting off the presumably sound population from the revolutionary movement. Incapable of apprehending the real significance of the battle for liberation, France in the first stage recognized the existence of a problem which it declared to be economic and social. In the hope of silencing the voice of national dignity, it solemnly undertook a fight to fight poverty and to solve the housing problem. Wages were symbolically increased, $15 an hour. Investment programs announced. This treatment of a demand for national liberation as if it were a peasant uprising or a manifestation of social discontent resulted from a double confusion. The idea that there is no Algerian national consciousness, on the one hand, and on the other, the conviction that the promises of improvement of the living standard of the populations would suffice to bring back order and peace. So I'm going to let you get the last word. We're going to come back and kind of pick up where we left off at, because I think this is going to take more discussion than we had time for. But go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, like we were saying. Okay, so let's go back to Malcolm Lansley, right? To be frank with you, it's not what you see on social media. It's not AI. Yeah, last week I did show it. There's a recording of him. I mean, very long, about an hour.
No, but Frank, I'm saying that he's not a real human being. Like this, what you see with what movie was that, man? Like I'm saying that's him talking, but I don't think that's a real human being. I don't think he has organs, man.
Oh, okay. I see. No, he have the imperialist organ in him. He don't have black organ.
That was built in.
Yeah. So the 1960s or the 1963 Casablanca group and the Monrovia group, right? It is what exactly taking place in our very eyes, but just in a different way, right? So do you know that, like Kwame Nkrumah said, we can never be asleep, because the imperialists are never asleep when it comes to us. They are never asleep, because they are making sure to make sure
the sun never sets.
Yes. So what happened? They think they are on top of their games, right? So they heard that there was going to be a march, how do you call it, global march, right, of black people or African people all around the world, and they knew what was coming. So they know the importance of Liberia to them, because the reality here is Liberia is a nation in West Africa that have the deep sea coast. Now, Africa have a sea, Ghana have a sea, Nigeria have a sea, and that is Sierra Leone as well. But none of them have a deep sea coast that can hold these big helicopter ship or even a submarine. Now, Liberia have a deep sea coast that can host the submarine. So as we speak, the United States submarine is in Liberia, under that sea, right there, right? So they know how important it is to them when it comes to Liberia. So what they did, they went ahead and sent an African commander to Liberia, right? To pass in front of the protester or the what was coming. They went to Liberia and signed an African military deal with the government there.
What year is this again?
The deal they just signed the deal. They signed the deal on the 29th, April 29th.
Oh, okay. So it just happened. All right.
It just happened because they knew what was coming. So they went there April 29, 28, and they signed an African military deal. And then for the very first time since World War II, because Liberia was the nation that was used, and that's why, by the way, today you have the RIA, because the RIA was built around World War II for the United States to fight her war, because Liberia was used as a base where they could fly their plane to go and fight Adolf Hitler, right? That was Liberia. Liberia was their base, and that was why today we have the RIA, Rabat International Airport. Now, so then when they signed this military deal, so that they can have a grip over Liberia, so that Liberia cannot be part of that Burkina Faso. Now, what is going on, right? Liberia, how they call it, Guinea, or Sierra Leone. That region is called the MRU, the Mana River Union. And the Mana River Union, just like the Sahel, right? Just like what you see today with the Sahel, the three nations. That was how Liberia, Guinea, Sierra Leone supposed to be. But again, it never utilized because of the same US, because of the same Monrovia group issues. Unlike the Sahel, the three nations in the Sahel that are so forceful, the MRU was not forceful, and the MRU was funded by Togo and other people, right? So now, what happened? That MRU, that region, is going to sabotage the African unity. But what's going to happen here is, unlike those days, these days is different, because the youth, the people are not in favor of a tolerant organization called AFRICOM to be established in Liberia, because we all know everywhere AFRICOM have been established, tolerance have increased, because they have to recruit people, terrorists, to train them in our area. Tolerance have to base there. So Liberia will not agree for Liberia to be a terrorist ground to train terrorists to carry on terrorist activities. So what then happened on the 30th of April? All around the world, when African people were marching, came out to voice out to tell the United States enough is enough. The United States government, in fact, the protester or the people that was marching, they was not protesting. They just had their placard in their hands, about Tuareg and about African unification and about how they support, in fact, how Abraham Tuareg is the president for the entire Africa. Those things, people have their different placard. They went to the French embassy. The French consul came out and did not accept the paper or whatsoever or document that they carried to present to the French government of their grievance or what the French authority are doing in Africa against Burkina Faso, against the liberation of Africa, right? The consular of France in Africa refused, and in fact, he drove away the people who went peacefully to meet him, and they locked their gate. On their way to the French embassy, there was a call made to the hierarchy, and the hierarchy made a call to the police. And the police went to these people who were peacefully marching, not interfering with businesses. In fact, they were on a side wall. The police came. Can you imagine? The police came and stopped those people from marching. In fact, the police told them, if you continue to march, you'll be arrested. In fact, the police told them, and as you are going home, the placard, the poster, you should turn it, you should dismantle it, you should put it right in your car and move, because the protester was like, okay, we are going to go back, but we are going to hold our placard and then go back to our homes. And they said, no, the main thing here is do not hold that placard into your hands, right? So again, that is to say, the Liberian president have compromised the African liberation and want to create an African base, a terrorist organization in Liberia, while other African nations today, Ghana, how they call it, Dramatic is also saying that the United States Africans should leave Ghana. Now, as they are leaving, they are finding another place. Liberia is now their breeding ground because the president of Liberia want a crumbs. He want an aid, all right? So he accepts for AFRICOM, a terrorist organization, to be established in our region. And if it is established in our region, that means Guinea is not safe, Sierra Leone is not safe. And we all know again, Guinea may not be part of this revolution that is going on. I mean, the president, I'm not talking about the people. What we are saying here, the Ivorian do not support what the Ivorian president is doing. And the Liberian people do not support what the Liberian government is doing. These are presidents who are doing their thing, working with the imperial, they're working with the terrorists in Africa, not the people. The people are not in alliance or in line with what these leaders are doing, accepting terrorists into those countries. Now, Guinea, the president of Guinea, it has come to our knowledge that he was supported by the same AFRICOM to remove Coney, the former president, all right? Because there are videos with this same Macron Leslie, all right, that he was with the current president of Guinea, training him, having meeting with him, advancing him, giving him strategic information. Boom! After a few days, they overthrow Coney. So again, Guinea, the president of Guinea, we don't know whether he's fully part. The people are part of the movement, but the president of Guinea, he's not to be trusted. All right, I believe he's working with the terrorists, and now Liberia have also come. The president have also come to work with the terrorists against African freedom. So I just want to bring that out, that the Ivorian are not in favor of the president, and the Liberian are not in favor of the president, because in fact, as we speak, there were Liberians who left from Liberia, went to Burkina Faso just for this April tally March. There was Liberian who left Liberia, went to Burkina Faso, and there was Liberian in Liberia who came out to march, but the police stopped them and told them they was going to be arrested if they continue.
Hey, greetings. I see the brother, assuming it's a brother Rod. We got to wrap up right now, but we'll be back next Saturday. Sorry we can't get you in at the moment, but man, appreciate everybody for tapping in. Appreciate you, Frank, for exposing, making some connections, and really, I don't know if this is like breaking news, you heard it here first, so the information, but definitely appreciate you making those connections. So with that being said, man, we'll be back next week. We're going to pick up right where I'm sorry. Hey, y'all probably hearing my meeting. I'm out. Peace. Uhuru. Till next time.
The white power structure, because that's all we have in America. And the white power structure today is just as much interested in perpetuating slavery as the white power structure was 100 years ago. Only now they use modern methods of doing so. And realizing that the black people in this country are waking up and becoming filled with a desire to be looked upon as men and as human beings. The white power structure, to slow down that struggle for freedom and human dignity, uses tricks. 100 years ago, they could do it with chains, today they use tricks. And one of the tricks that they've invented is this token integration. To get Negro, so-called Negro leaders to accept a few token crumbs of integration that don't solve any problem for the masses of black people in this country whatsoever, but it does make the hand-picked Negroes be satisfied to slow down the cry of the masses. And a good example of that is as soon as the spirit of rebellion or revolution began to spread among the masses of black people in this country, and they began to take an active part, and they showed that they weren't confined to this nonviolent approach, then the government or the power structure began to sit up and take notice and